If you are a procrastinator, the very best thing you can do to help you to remove that is to actually make a start.
Yeah, 100%.
Any start. So even a 5% start.
Better than nothing.
Even a 2%. If you start and just do something, you massively increase the likelihood of actually completing it than if you do nothing at all.
If you want more time, money, freedom, and have a business that's not reliant on you, then you're in the right place. Each week, Mark Creedon, along with some of the very best business minds in the world, will take you through simple, practical steps you can take to create the business you always wanted. From his own practical experience, Mark will show you how to work less, make more, and get the business you always wanted, the one that you deserve. Now here's your host, one of Australia's most sought-after business coaches, Mark Creedon.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Mastermind for Business podcast. This podcast is for you if you are in a small business and you feel like you're just a bit trapped, right? It's just not, you've forgotten why you started business in the first place and it's not really giving you the joy that it used to because you are spending way too much time in it. And particularly if you're a couple in business and you find that you spend all your time, talking across the dinner table or whilst you're supposed to be watching the kids play soccer, you're talking about business, then you're in the right place. As always, joining me in the chair is Nick. Welcome, mate.
Hello.
Hey, Nick, what I wanted to talk about today was the concept of procrastination. Now, I wanted to talk about this about 3 months ago, but I just couldn't.
Would you procrastinate? Yeah, been for.
So here's the thing. Are you a procrastinator?
I am. I think the more times we say that word in this episode, just quickly, it's going to start sounding a lot worse.
Procrastinator.
It's not the easiest word to say. It's ugly.
No, you were going to say it 3 times running, right? So I can be. I think I've taught myself not to be most of the time, but I certainly can be now at times. But anyway, what I want to do, I want to share with our listeners this little tip. And just bear with me for a second, right? There's a little bit of psychology behind this. So there was a psychologist by the name of Zygarnik. She was a Russian psychologist, and between the First and the Second World War, so 1918, 1920, somewhere around there. Anyway, so she was at a cafe, and she noticed that the wait staff, waiters as they then were, they were taking orders. They weren't writing anything down.
All right.
But once they handed the order over, if she went and somebody asked them like 10 minutes later, what did table 3 order? They couldn't remember, right? So she wanted to understand what was going on here. And essentially the conclusion that she came to, it's called the Zygarnik effect. That's something that's top and center. Once you get it out of your mind, you can then move on and forget about it. So once they got the orders and placed the orders and handed the orders over to the kitchen,
They were swiped.
they wiped them completely. They didn't have to write them down. They just got them out of their mind, out of the front of their mind, and they pushed on and they didn't have to think about it. How that relates to procrastination is this. The reason that we don't move on something is because we haven't started it. So they would keep this in their mind until such time as the order was handed over. But once the order was handed over, it might have been actually when it was delivered to the table. Once it was delivered to the table, they forgot it completely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So whilst it's still an active thing, it was in their mind and they would push through to finish it. So the concept is that if you are a procrastinator, the very best thing you can do to help you to remove that is to actually make a start.
Yeah, 100%.
Any start. So even a 5% start.
Better than nothing.
Even a 2%. If you start and just do something, you massively increase the likelihood of actually completing it than if you do nothing at all.
Yeah, because it's sitting there then, isn't it? You go, well, it's not that big of a tackle to, so that's right on tackle, it's not that big of a task.
So essentially, it was they forgot the orders once the orders were delivered. So it's unfinished business, right? I just had to sort of think back to the process, but it was unfinished business. So whilst it was unfinished, they would retain it and that they would keep it in their mind. But once it was done, it was gone. So the similar process is if you don't start it, it's not in your mind, right? But once you start it, then the concept of that project now stays in your mind. So for these waiters, once they had taken the order, they would retain that order until the job was done. It would be going on like in the back of their mind, ticking over. And the same thing with a project or a task or something you're procrastinating on. If you don't start it, you can shift it to the back of your mind and try to forget about it.
Yep.
But if you make a start, there's a constant reminder of it for you. So the best way to move past procrastination is to actually make a start.
Yeah, makes sense.
It does make sense, doesn't it? If you think about it, I've got a real world example. It's not just really procrastination, but we've got a little project at your house for your kids that you started. It is on my mind. It mightn't seem like it, but it is on my mind most days. Most days I feel guilty and shitty about the fact that I haven't finished that, right? If we'd never started it, if we'd never bought it, or if it was still in the box, it probably wouldn't bother me.
No.
You know?
If I said, I might, you probably would have forgotten about it.
I would have. If I'd say, listen, we'll get that for the kids. And then you'd say, hey, Dad, remember 3 months ago you said you're going to get that. Oh, okay, yeah, sure. But because it started and it's there,
You're constantly there. So it's like when I edit content and I edit videos, I create a list of, what's priority and go down and all the things that I have to edit. So if I keep adding something to the list every time I create a new list, and I haven't had a start on it at all, a lot of the times I end up making the list further down the track and I forget about it and it doesn't go onto the list. You know what I mean? So the way I deal with that is actually by at least getting off a 5% start on it. So that way when it's there, it always seems like it just has to be part of it, because why would you waste that time of that 5% but you spent on it already?
yeah, correct. Because you kicked off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So if you can at least get that little bit of a start, and it almost sticks in your brain, or it almost becomes necessary to finish.
Yep, I like it. So look, the lesson is this. If you've got something that you're putting off, whether it's a project, a task, whatever it might be, make a start. Even the smallest of starts, even the tiniest little bit, just make a start. And it's more likely to play on your psyche than if you never make a start at all, and be interesting to see sort of how that pans out.
I like to use what I've done or what I've just achieved or just finished as motivation for the next thing as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if that really works for everybody. There's something that works for me. If I put a lot of time and effort into an edit or something like that and it's a finished product, I use the motivation of, I just did that. I just finished that. So how hard would it be for me to jump into something that's already 5% done? Yeah. No, it's not like I have to start from scratch, but because that's a harder thing. Yeah, finishing something and that sense of achieving and something that you've finished something, you have something up, to then have to go and start something from scratch again is a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it is.
But if I got a little bit done, that's nowhere near a door to me, is it?
Yeah. No, I agree. Great lessons, I think. Great lessons. So, Nick, I was reading a book by Gary Keller from Keller Williams, and they were talking about the value of being, people say, you just got to get better, you got to get better, you got to get better. And they were talking about the value of being different over being better. So, because they were saying that the more different you can be in the marketplace, the less crowded the marketplace is.
Sure.
Right? It's the only part of the market that's not crowded by being different. So everybody out there in your industry wants to be better at what they do. Everybody wants to do comparisons. I want to do it better. I want to do it better. But instead, if you were to say, I want to do it differently, and here they were talking about this commitment to customer or client service and how super easy it is. And it was really interesting because I had an experience in a retail environment the other day, and I would have preferred the person behind the counter to just go, yeah, you know what, mate, I actually really don't give a shit. So, whatever. I would have felt a lot more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Because that was what they were. Yeah, because that was essentially what they were saying to me.
Without actually saying it.
But this concept of getting out and being different in your marketplace, I think sometimes we think about being different, it seems like a real challenge. You go, it's so hard because, everybody tries to be different. But I don't think everybody does. I think everybody just tries to be better at being the same.
Yeah, and I think what I get a lot is when I try and help people stand out from the pack and stuff when it comes to social media content, things like that, is a lot of the times you get how can I do things differently when everything's been done before? Yeah. No, everything's already been done. Everything's already been invented. Everything's already been done before. How can I do things differently? So it's not necessarily about doing things differently to anyone's done before, but sometimes it's just about doing things differently to how you've done it before.
Well, do you know the other thing I reckon, and this is something that I first heard from Taki Moore, but I think it's about authenticity.
Yeah.
Right. So I just did this presentation. So we've just finished Wealth Retreat on the Gold Coast. Every year, Metro puts on Wealth Retreat. We spend 5 days with a whole bunch of really clever cats in the room, people who come and learn all about mindset, shares, tax, property, business. 5 days. It's fantastic. And I just finished presenting. And one of the things I spoke about there was the value of authenticity. So this is kind of where I wanted to go from here, is that when you're talking about doing it differently, it's in some ways a good analogy, I think, is to stop being a cover band.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So when you first starting business, particularly if you're in a service business, you'll look around and you'll get this advice. You'll get this advice from marketers, from other coaches. I'll have a look at your competition to see what they're doing and find the most successful person and copy it.
Yeah. Because it works, right? They know that it works. It's work, but it works for someone else, doesn't necessarily.
So that's the thing, right? And so the way Taki put it is, it's like wearing somebody else's undies.
Yeah.
Right? It might seem a bit kinky and refreshing to start with, but after a while, it just gets a bit weird.
Step down the chafing, right?
Right. Well, you don't want somebody else's chafing. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. Right. So this concept of authenticity, right? So if you're struggling in your business at the moment because it's just not delivering what you hope for, the question I'd be asking is it because I'm doing something that is not authentically me? Because you can only, like, unless you're getting paid like Brad Pitt, you can only pretend to be somebody else for so long. And even really good actors pretend to be somebody else for a period of time and then take time off. Now, they might take months off between shoots, partly because they got paid $50 million for a part, but partly because you just can't go on, like, unless you're that dude from Catch Me If You Can, and even he played different roles.
It has to end at some point. Right?
It has to come to an end, right? You just can't pretend to be somebody else. And I see it all the time. I see people in service business and they go, right, well, I started this business and I saw the bloke or the person in another suburb doing the same business. I copied what they did. But you made the point before, what works for them may not work for you. And it may not actually be in your flow.
That's all they get in video and presenting it, which one people will be like, oh, I've seen the way that they did this and I really want to emulate that. Yep. Okay, that's fine. That's great. But what you've got to remember is that you're not But
Yeah.
We need to find a way, try to find your authentic self. Not someone else's, not what you've seen before that you like, not what someone else has told you that they want to see more of. Yes. Not what you think works so that you want to do more of it or that you want to copy it, essentially. You need to find a way for you to deliver same sort of message or have the same sort of impact, but sticking true to who you are and doing it. Because we just know that an audience or team or anyone will respond better to that. Because we as humans, we want connection. Yet politely, we deal in the world of connection. And you can't connect with someone unless you're being authentic. It's extremely hard to connect with anyone on an emotional level, especially if you're not being authentic.
Right. So you can't. So for you in the world of video, you can't connect through a lens, right? If I'm pretending to be somebody, unless I'm an actor.
That's right.
And I'm role playing, and then I can, but only for a period of time.
But even actors, they still make intentional choices.
Yes, that's right.
Right. So
they choose a role.
Yeah. Or they choose a way for themselves to get into that space. Yep. So yeah, that's what method acting is, right? Is they become that person. And that's not what we want to do. You don't want to become that person. Yeah. Because as you said, you can't keep that up. And even if you're Daniel Day-Lewis, you can't keep that up for, the rest of your life.
No. And you know the other thing too, I think that if I'm being somebody else when you're shooting a video for me and I look into the lens and I can be someone else, I can probably do that for a bit.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm going to give you a real world example in a second. But then when somebody meets me and they go, oh, hang on, that's not you. That's not you. Yeah. That's like all the posters you see of politicians.
Yeah.
At election time. And then you see them in the face and you go, wow, man, that poster was like 20 years ago.
And you always feel as a consumer or as someone who's an audience member or whatever, looking from the outside in, you always feel like you've been jibbed. Yeah, ripped off. Yeah, you almost feel like that's a real lied to.
So do you remember we had a marketing company for Mastermind and they sent us through a script for me to read into a video?
Yes.
And I shot that video like 8 times.
It was a struggle to get through.
It was, because the script wasn't me.
No, it wasn't in your words. It wasn't delivered in a way that you would say it. And that's where it's a lot of, by the way, I'm not trying to shit on marketing companies or anything like that, but that's where a lot of marketing companies and teams that are focused on marketing get it wrong, because they've seen results from something. Yep. They've seen results and they go, hey, look, we went viral with this or whatever.
So let's rinse and repeat.
So why wouldn't they? Why try and fix something that isn't broken, So I completely get the mentality behind it, but it's just not practical to put everybody in the same boat, because at the end of the day, also, you're not going to get the results that person got.
No, that's right. That's
because you're not doing it any differently. It's been done before. It's been seen before.
And I think the other thing too, and I'm sort of dropping myself in it here, but the reality is when I shot that video, what was really funny is I didn't enjoy it. So I always enjoy a shoot with you.
Yeah.
And we normally do them within a couple of takes. I'm not too bad most of the time.
No.
And without a script most of the time.
Yeah.
But when we shot that video, I didn't like it. I didn't feel comfortable. It wasn't me. The wording wasn't me. And what was really funny, when we sent it through the marketing guys, they just went, oh, wow. Like, yeah, that's just not you. Like, we're really, it didn't get traction, by the way.
We could have told them that.
And when I said to them, oh, why didn't it get traction? They went, oh, we just think that somehow you're not coming across. And, you know, when I talk to you, like I just get excited when I chat to you, Mark, but watching that video, I didn't get excited at all. I go, well, because it wasn't me. I had somebody else's undies on. I wasn't feeling comfortable.
And that's why, the fly on the wall type perspective is a lot better, because they're getting the real you.
Yep.
Right. They're getting the authentic version of you. They're not getting some prepared, scripted version of yourself. And that's why we find ways to get yourself into the best mind frame where you are at your absolute best.
Yep.
We find ways where spaces in your life where you are your most passionate, your most energetic, your most compassionate. We talk about the 4 voices of presence and stuff like that, where, you can get into the voice of mentor, which is, really patient. There's a lot of space there, to be able to deliver a message, and you're okay to repeat things 3 or 4 times because you want the message to sink in with who's listening to it. You want it to have the impact that you're trying to get across because you care about it. So that's where, if you can't relate, or if the message isn't yours, how are you meant to care about it? How are you meant to put that across? How are you meant to have that same level of energy or passion behind it when it's not your message?
Yeah, it just frustrating, because so I guess the question is this: if you are feeling that kind of stuck in your business around the way you feel about what you're doing, just ask yourself this: am I being authentically me? Because being somebody else is bloody hard work. And then I think the second part of the question is to go, what is a way that I can be authentically me and help the people around me to be authentically them? So I know, within the Metropole Group, part of my job as the CEO is to help everybody to bring out the very best in themselves. And part of that for me is to go, well, how can I help them to be authentically themselves? Because if they can be authentically themselves, a couple of things happen. People want to buy more from them, because people buy people, not products.
Yep.
They then know, people get to know them, they like them, they trust them, they buy from them. But the other thing is we get a variety. We get a variety of people and personalities within the business, which actually makes it more balanced and work better anyway.
Yeah, creates a better dynamic, right?
Does, 100%.
And I think that, one of the things that we say as well is that someone saying, in the world of sales especially, someone saying, I like you, goes a long way.
100%.
Someone being able to relate to you.
Yeah, but do you know what? But they can only like you if it's truly you. Because the other thing too that you pointed out before, if they get to like you and it's not actually you, they're going to get really pissed off at some stage.
Yeah, they're going to feel jibbed 100%.
Yeah, try to find your authentic self, your authentic voice, whether you're recording stuff like this, whether you're producing video content, whether you're sending emails, whether you're having conversations with clients, finding your authenticity. Stop wearing other people's undies, stop being your rubber band, start being yourself. And find, even if it doesn't improve the revenue for your business, you'll be amazed at how much better you'll feel about your business.
It's like going on a date. If you go on a date and you're not, obviously, like if you're an absolute weirdo, maybe hide a little bit out at the start. Don't be full of yourself.
Yeah.
But, if you go on a date and you're not yourself, you're someone completely different, well then all of a sudden when that starts to come out a little bit more and who you actually are, well, you haven't found the right fit for you anyway, have you? If they liked a version of you that wasn't really you, then they're going to find out who you are eventually. Yeah, 100%. You can't keep it up, as we said. You can't keep that up forever.
Yep.
But also, it's doing yourself a disservice, because you're not going to have the same relationships, the same connection with people that you would have if you were just yourself.
Which is essential to success and to happiness.
Yeah, 100%.
As always, mate, great to chat. So we spoke about procrastination, how to get rid of procrastination by starting, and how to remove some of the feeling stuck and feeling overwhelmed and just feeling, a bit yuck about yourself and your business, is to just find your authentic voice and your authentic self. These are the sort of things we teach our clients all the time. metropolemastermind.com.au. Until we chat in the next episode, please make sure you spend time with those who matter most. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, guys.